Plates ready? This is Food School, Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast. Want to feel amazing, love the way you look in the mirror, and perform your absolute best in the gym, at work, and in life? You're definitely in the right place. Food. It's you. It builds every single cell of you. And if there is one thing every human being must master, it's food. Because at the very least, eating, you do it every day, several times a day, every single day. You might as well get good at it. I'm your host, Shurina from createyourself.today, your personal nutritionist and plate watcher, your diet guide and explorer, your fat loss coach and food inspector. And just someone with a lot of passion and obsession and curiosity for healthy food, healthy diets, nutrition, optimized human performance, everything and absolutely anything you put in your grocery shopping cart, your fridge, on your plate, and in your mouth. It's my business. Food School, on a mission to help you eat better daily.
It's the last time I talk about food. It's the last time I talk about food.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast. Today is Monday, new week, new day, time to set new goals and do things to actually achieve them. Most importantly, I believe to achieve any goal in life is to actually simply schedule it. A lot of us, most of us, we have goals, right? Especially if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably the kind of person who does like to set up goals and sees the value of goals to move your life forward into the direction that you want to see it moving. But a lot of us, we have these audacious goals, but we don't actually schedule daily actions that step by step move us towards those goals. It's great to have direction in life, but it's even better to have actual action steps every day that move you towards that goal. And that ultimately will make a difference between people who actually achieve what they set up to achieve and people who just have goals and that's it. Wishful thinking is not a good plan of action. That's the moral of the story. On today's episode, we are talking about two things: refined carbs and bread. So you might hear from a lot of nutritionists, a lot of nutrition guidelines, articles and blogs about healthy eating, healthy lifestyle, healthy diet, healthy food. You might hear a lot about this term refined carbs, processed carbs, how we want to eliminate them as much as possible because of the negative effects they have on our metabolic health, on our longevity, on our energy levels, on a lot of things. Like refined carbohydrates is a pretty new phenomena if you take human evolution, and our metabolism, our body does not seem to do really well with that if you consume processed carbohydrates on a regular basis. Now, what you do once in a while as a dessert, maybe like once a week or once a month, it doesn't matter that much. But if it's something you do every day and you are not an athlete, then probably you should think about it and change something until you have more negative consequences. So processed carbs, refined carbs, what are they? A lot of you probably hear those terms, hear those words, but don't really know exactly what that means to not eat refined carbs. To put it simply, refined carbs is anything made of or made with any source of grain flour. And it can say whole grain flour or anything like that. But refined carbs is anything and everything made with flour. And also in addition to flour, when you hear the words refined carbs, usually it means all the sugars, all the processed sugars, all the added sugars. So refined carbs, flour. So does it mean that all the bread is refined carb? Yes, it does, guys. And that's why bread should not be something that you consume abundantly. Even before, we're going to talk a little bit more about bread later on this podcast, but even before, nobody consumed bread in huge amounts. You would eat a couple of pieces, maybe a piece per meal, and that's it. And people would have 1, 2, 3 meals, not like 6 snacks and snacking all the time and then consuming all the sugars in all the drinks, all the Starbucks or whatever coffee place you get your coffee drink from. So people were never consuming a lot of refined carbohydrates, like never. Even, places like Italy, where pasta is very popular, that is also a refined carb, even they, first of all, the dough that pasta was made of was different, and it had different gluten and starch content, and it definitely was more nutritious than modern wheat. But besides that, they would have that meal once a day. They did not have sugar and refined carbs many times during the day. So that's a huge difference, guys. And plus, usually, they would work a lot, they would be really active, and they would not have like a huge pile of pasta. They would probably have a little bit of pasta, normal amount, and then a lot of vegetables, a lot of other things like maybe seafood, and again, vegetables, olives, olive oil, and all that stuff. But anyhow, refined carbs, back to refined carbs, flour, anything made out of flour. So you want to minimize it or eliminate it completely. And especially you want to eliminate almost completely, if not completely, refined sugars. So we talked about refined carbohydrates and refined grains. Refined grains are everything and anything made out of or with flour. So that's a refined carb, guys. If you don't see the grains in your grains, like every single grain when you eat it, it is a refined carb because it was made out of flour. So pasta, pizzas, bakeries, gluten-free or not gluten-free, it's all refined carbohydrates. And then added sugars and refined sugars. And here we're gonna eliminate all the sugars, all the added sugars, even honey, even cane syrup or evaporated cane juice. Fruit juices is also, no matter how natural it is, fruit juice is a refined carb. It's a liquid carb, liquid sugar. Even if it's fructose, it's still sugar. It's metabolized differently in your body, but it's still added sugar. So juices, whether you drink them or whether they're included in considerable amounts in any of your foods, all of that matters, guys, and all of that are refined carbohydrates. So again, refined carbohydrates that you want to avoid as much as possible, eating your carbohydrates with fiber in whole food form, like maybe sweet potato, or like maybe cooked carrots or cooked beets. There are a lot of starches in vegetables actually, but they are not processed, they're not refined because they are a part of a whole food, and that's the main difference between processed carbs and unprocessed carbs. Unprocessed carbs are a part of whole food. So if you eat the whole sweet potato, that's where you see whole carbohydrates. If you eat, even if you eat like a tomato, it still has a lot of carbohydrates. Or if you eat apple, a lot of carbohydrates, but in a form of whole foods. So we want to eliminate refined carbs. Again, anything and everything made with flour and with added sugars. And sugars are anything and everything that is sweet and was a powder or was a juice. So all sorts of sugars, syrups, juices, all of that are refined added sugars. And the only things as sweeteners I would probably, based on all the science, based on all the research we have for your metabolic health, and also for either none or very little possible negative health consequences. So the sweeteners that we are okay with, stevia, all natural. Look at the ingredients because some brands include a lot of other things besides stevia. So stevia, all natural, whole thing, made either into powder or sometimes they make it into syrup. But again, check the ingredients of that stevia product. So stevia, monk fruit, usually in the form of powder, and erythritol, and those are probably the only sweet things added to our foods. And allulose, that's another new sugar on the block that is eliminated from the list of added sugars. It seems to have no effect on our blood sugar and seems to have no negative effects on our gut microbiome. At least that's what we know now. So stevia, monk fruit are natural ones. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol. Allulose is a sugar alcohol too. So those are the sweeteners that you might be okay with in some of your products. But for all of you guys, eat as much as possible whole foods, whole carbohydrates, whole everything. Believe me, it makes a huge difference. Not just the way how healthy you are, but also how much energy you have, how you look, how easy for you it is to maintain your weight, and how hungry or not hungry you are. A lot of things are gonna get much better once you start eating predominantly whole food diet. And then on refined carbohydrates, a lot of you guys like to include a piece of bread in some of your meals, once in a while. For some people it works, we have different metabolisms. So what is my short and simple guide to buying the best bread when it comes to health and your metabolism to experiment with? Sourdough bread with 4 main ingredients: flour, water, yeast, and salt. Also, some of the breads, some fancy brands might have things like sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds or some other, whole food additions that are good and great for your health. Maybe something like sprouts, or maybe sometimes they add some like goji berries for a sweeter version of bread. But usually in a normal bread, what you're looking for is a short ingredient list: flour, water, yeast or some sort of microorganisms, and salt. So those are the ingredients you want to see in the bread, and make sure it's sourdough. Sourdough is a kind of dough that is made by certain microorganisms, lactobacillus and other similar bacteria that ferment starches and gluten and break down certain proteins in wheat and similar products. And they create acids and alcohols in the process that kill off all the pathogenic bacteria that can possibly harm you or cause some disease. They kill that. And also that process makes bread last longer because of those acids and alcohols. Another advice on bread, guys, besides it being sourdough, besides it being made with just few ingredients, another very important aspect is make sure that you get most of your bread from some artisanal bakery or shop that uses a slow process. So basically when their dough sits fermenting and rising for at least 12 hours, but usually it's between 18 to 24 hours. That really allows microorganisms to break down the starches, to break down the gluten, and give you more benefits and less problems. I'm going to read you some fun, interesting facts from Food Unfolded magazine. It's by one of the biggest organizations in Europe that is working on creating more sustainable and healthier food systems. So, fun facts. The microbes in bread also digest gluten, meaning that the real sourdough should either be low in gluten or gluten-free. So it might be an option for people with gluten intolerance and celiac disease. Fun fact, the lower amount of sugars means sourdough also has a lower glycemic index than many types of other bread. And I want you guys to really think about that. The problems with a lot of gluten intolerances and sensitivities these days is just we never before ate the kind of bread, what I like to call fast bread that we are eating now. We just never did, because we allowed, like my grandma, for example, allowed to seed the dough with microorganisms, breaking down the gluten and starches and all sorts of proteins, creating, the school health beneficial compounds. So the difference between the bread back then and now is those microorganisms were allowed to seed and do their work for like up to a day. That's what my grandma used to do. And these days, everything, everybody wants everything fast, but you can't, at least they don't do that at the moment. You can't speed up the process of this organism breaking down and eating certain things, creating other health beneficial compounds. And because the bread is fast, all the gluten, all the starch, it stays there. And that's why there are so many more people gluten sensitive, gluten intolerant, because before nobody really ate that amount of gluten. And plus, modern variety of wheat, it's much more different than what we had before, when we had ancient old varieties of wheat that did not give us that much volume, but were more nutritious and had less gluten in them. So the bread back then was different, but there are still many artisanal shops and bakeries that make bread the way it used to be done. For I don't know what reasons some of those shops have. Hopefully some of them actually know what work those organisms do when they are allowed to sit for like 24 hours and digest all this gluten, all these starches. Who knows why, those shops and bakeries do their work the way they do them. Might be actually interesting to interview some of the bakers on this podcast, the ones who stick with this old method of making bread. So to sum up today's episode, guys, if you want to have more metabolic health, especially if your metabolism is already kind of not working and you might have metabolic disease like problems with cholesterol, with blood pressure, with blood sugar, with insulin, inflammation, all of those are signs of metabolic breakdown. So especially you need to remove as many refined carbohydrates as possible. And refined carbohydrates, basically, guys, are anything that is not a part of whole foods, simply put. So anything made out of flour or with flour, no matter how whole grain that flour is, and any sorts of added sugars, besides occasional treats made with stevia, with allulose, with erythritol, and with monk fruit. And bread, get sourdough made with 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, yeast, and sometimes there are other microorganisms on the list, and some fancy ingredients like sunflower seeds or some sprouts. So look for that kind of bread. In a little announcement, so this week we also gonna talk about this amazing book that I've finished recently, Superhuman by Dave Asprey. So we're gonna learn the most advanced biohacking techniques that all of you guys can do to improve your health, your well-being, your energy levels, and to just feel, look, and be your absolute best. So Superhuman, check out the book by Dave Asprey, probably one of the founders of modern biohacking movement. And biohacking, by the way, guys, it's even in the dictionary. It's modifying your environment to change your biology and the way you look, perform, feel, etc. So it's a thing that we humans always been doing and always are doing, whether we know it and whether we use it for our benefit or not. So that's going to be on Wednesday. On Tuesday, I forget what we're going to do on Tuesday. I wrote it down somewhere. But anyhow, tomorrow is going to be something interesting for sure. I had it on my plan somewhere. Wednesday, book. Thursday, I'm flying to Paris, so there's going to be a break in our podcasting. On Friday, though, we're going to have a guest who's going to tell you some secrets to maintain super cool physique, no matter how busy you are, lean and healthy and full of energy and feel. We're going to have a guest on our podcast on Friday, and on Saturday, we're going to talk food school. Going to be in France, and we're gonna talk about grocery shopping and food system in France. So all exciting episodes for you this week, so stay tuned. Set goals, schedule action steps to achieve those goals, and as usual, guys, well, first of all, have an awesome week, and as usual, eat better daily.